Hello everyone, you're watching the News Pulse channel. At first, the political crisis in Ukraine was rightly seen as a political struggle between the US, Europe and Russia, with Ukraine being less involved. Essentially, this is true. However, Ukraine is now the stage where these major powers are figuring things out. Some aim for peace, while others prefer a truce. The US and Europe fall into the latter category, but Europe has lost its influence, making it irrelevant to discuss. Trump's special envoy Uitkov is visiting Moscow, whose task is to negotiate and ideally conclude a ceasefire on US terms. For obvious reasons, Russia is not satisfied with such a scenario. However, diplomacy consists not only of negotiations but also of presentation, where there are obligatory duty, friendly remarks, polite smiles and tact. It was impossible not to receive the US envoy. Still, the White House is trying to establish relations. And we had to send him back with something, so they sent him back. Trump did end his meeting with Vladimir Putin. According to Russian presidential aide Yuri Ushakov, an agreement has been reached to hold a meeting between Putin and Trump in the coming days. The parties have begun to work it out. The venue for the meeting between Putin and Trump has been agreed. It will be announced a little later. Next week has been designated as a benchmark for the meeting between Putin and Trump, but it is difficult to say how many days the preparation will take. Uitkov mentioned the idea of a trilateral meeting with Putin, Trump and Zelensky, but Moscow didn't comment. Moscow is updating its friends and partners on the outcome of Putin's meeting with Uitkov. Yuri Ushakov told the media, "Let's be clear, even if this meeting happens, it won't be groundbreaking. It will likely be protocol, with a 95% chance. We'll keep 5% reserved just in case, to avoid complaints later that we promised one thing, but it turned out differently." In fact, Trump, with his ultimatums, threats, sending submarines and aggression towards Medvedev, has backed himself into a corner. His constant remarks on what he is happy dissatisfied with Putin narrow his room for maneuver. You can't just say that and then take it back. You have to think. However, the business logic to which Donald Fredovich is accustomed requires otherwise. But business logic and state logic are different things. Trump is in a trap he created for himself. The attempt to pressure Moscow has failed. Sanctions and tariffs on Russian allies will hurt Washington itself. They have scared few people about it. Here we have introduced tariffs against India in 25%. As we predicted, India responded with a demonstrative refusal, signing a protocol to expand industrial cooperation with Russia in spite of Washington. Following the introduction of duties, the Prime Minister of India initially traveled to Beijing, a place he hadn't visited in 7 years. While the official agenda is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, the discussions will focus on other topics. The SCO's mission includes security, yet it's Washington that disrupts global security. Amidst this, Trump dispatches his envoy to the Kremlin to convince Putin to meet with him. The Kremlin agrees to meet. Trump must delay tariffs, or he'll ruin the meeting he's wanted with Putin to legitimize his rule. Meanwhile, the myth of Moscow's isolation ends, as the US, which declared it, seeks our meeting. Will continue after some information. And we proceed. The advantage of this meeting is quite clear, especially considering that Putin has the opportunity to personally communicate to Trump the gravity of the concern and the current happenings on Earth. He can attempt to elucidate to Washington where and how they might have erred and propose ways for correction. This meeting serves to inform Washington of the actual situation, in case Trump lacks complete awareness of the ongoing events. However, let's see. Apparently, the meeting is not long in coming, and it will most likely take place somewhere in the United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia, as the author speculated a few months ago. There are not many places in the world where the leaders of Russia and the United States could meet for a conversation on neutral territory, and it would not look like a trip to bow to the loser. It should be said that by the time the issue is released, the location of the meeting will probably be known. However, at the time of writing, the information hasn't been announced. As mentioned, the real benefit of the meeting might occur, but it will be mostly protocol. The media impact will be much stronger. Trump hopes Putin will praise, flatter, and call him a smart, good, and worthy leader. Then, Trump can boast about it, no matter the meeting's outcome. Nevertheless, Putin remains the world's most popular politician because his opinion matters to such a vain man. There's also the significant domestic aspect of the issue. Trump needs either a win, the appearance of a win, or at least progress towards that win. Since taking office, the White House hasn't solved any major American problems. If there's nothing to brag about in the economy, then at least in foreign policy, a handshake with the Kremlin is notable. It's not minor, nor is it unnecessary. Otherwise, everyone interprets the meeting differently. Russia doesn't expect much from it. The US anticipates immediate impact. Europe is blatantly excluded from the talks. The world expects white nations to negotiate while others live, not seek paradise with possessions. Countries like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates await a historic opportunity to mark their names like Yalta, Vienna, Westphalia, and Potsdam. Panic? There's one troubled region, proud to be a testing ground, panicking about this meeting: Ukraine. Pro-government channels in Ukraine are panicking about the upcoming meeting between Russian President Putin and US President Trump. Verkhovna Rada deputy Alexander Dubinsky wrote on Telegram. Channels linked to the president's office show real hysteria over the possible Trump-Putin meeting. Judging by the intensity, smoke fuses have already blown in the op, the publication stated. A revealing scenario unfolds for those entrusting their lives to outside influencers. The shift from the slogan "not a word about Ukraine without Ukraine" to "let's discuss without the Ukrainians" is ominous for the Kyiv regime. It's been evident for a while that it is being sidelined, likely since the Kiev regime's inception during the 2014 Maidan conflict. The method was the question, and now we are seeing it unfold. Negotiations. Washington has threatened sanctions, imposed tariffs and levies, yet still must retreat and engage with the Kremlin. Goodwill? Not quite. Ukraine is running low, or has depleted its air defense missiles, so the situation is being handled thoroughly. With emotion, understanding, and intent. Thus, the frantic plea for an air truce from a political scientist, not yet labeled as a foreign agent, but who has failed significantly. Therefore, the request for a meeting has been made. Nevertheless, the Kremlin has frequently emphasized the necessity of addressing the fundamental issues of the crisis, making it unnecessary to reiterate this point. As mentioned initially, the political crisis in Ukraine began as a conflict involving the US, Europe, and Russia. In this situation, Russia has been striving to establish a stable and enduring peace, while the US is seeking a ceasefire. We are approaching this meeting with these perspectives in mind. Whether Trump will be successful in conveying the distinction remains to be seen, and only time will reveal the outcome.